Anyhow, yeah. So that Lil Baby and Gucci Mane song that you put on right at the end there made me think about Gucci Mane, who's one of those rappers that's been like not at the forefront of my mind that often, but one of those people that I know about, but I don't know his music. And so I was like, oh, yeah. Gucci Mane, let's go see what he's all about. And I dove into his Apple Music catalog. It's hysterical. Like, I'm not super familiar with him, obviously, but on the surface, I can't tell if he's like a joke rapper or if he's serious or if he's actually really smart and that's just his image that he's trying to funny. Kind of like a Tyler the Creator type of thing where he's actually like a really like that Tyler the Creator is an act, like it's a full act and it's a character, right?
Yeah.
So I'm wondering, like, is Gucci Mane sort of the same thing? Because there's no way this is a real person.
Well, potentially, I guess if you look at it that way, because I look at Tyler the Creator, he definitely has a big persona and he's weird and he always like does something different, very different, you know what I mean? And it's out there, but I almost like blend that in with his personality, you know what I mean? He's just that goofy, he kind of says some crazy shit, speaks his mind. But Gucci, I think he's real, bro. Because he's pretty influential. Like, he's never been my favorite artist.
Yeah.
But he's super influential, like...
Yeah, clearly. Like, it's weird.
To certain groups of people, whether it's like, you know, ballers or drug dealers or whatever different groups you want to talk about, gangster types who love that hood music. He's like a god to some of them. Like, some of the guys I grew up with in high school, like, they're like only listen to Gucci.
Yeah.
And he just...
Yeah, I guess it's... He fulfills a need for a certain niche of rap music, like you said, the hood rap, like that is sort of his, that's where he fits in nicely. But it always surprises me, like when I see those guys, like, where is all this money coming from? Like, I know you're doing numbers, but you're not doing like Drake numbers, you're not doing Lil Baby numbers. Like, where, like, all the, you know, the jewels and the cars and the teeth and the it's like, it's so excessive. Like,
well, I think that's because with Gucci, he's like from like 10 years ago a little bit. Like when I was coming out of high school, like 2011, 2012. And even when I was in high school, it was like Gucci. And a lot of people used to listen to him. So I feel like he was really big on that level. Like he kind of was the Lil Baby for a little bit, like the biggest hood rapper, like a Moneybagg Yo. Now he's like one of the forefathers for Moneybagg and those type of guys a little bit. I think they all.
I think you're right. Yeah, I think you're right.
And now I think he's just making money because a lot of people look at him as that god. He's like borderline, but he just keeps pumping out music too. He went to prison. He like came out of jail and got crazy in shape, and he's super like buff and
he works. He works. So I was astonished when I saw his catalog, dude.
Yeah,
like 50 plus albums, not singles. Like, these were all albums, all the artwork, it just goes on and on and on. I'm like, god damn, this guy's putting the time in the studio. Like whatever you want to say about him, respect for working that hard and putting the time in the studio.
That's so true.
Because it's, you know, whatever you want to say about these top artists, you know, who make it look easy, we're forgetting that a lot of them grinded their asses off to get to where they're at, to now where they can flash the cars and the money and then this and you know, the girls and the penthouses and stuff. But lifestyle. Like, they've been in the studio, they've slept in the studio, you know, lived in there for weeks.
It's very
same
true.
Boots.
They're just, those type of guys are just grinders, you know what I mean? I feel like that Atlanta rap scene is the biggest. You know how Atlanta is kind of one of the biggest rap scenes.
Oh yeah,
with Young Thug, Lil Baby, Gucci Mane before, just so many, and like Nav and them all go down there to Atlanta. I feel like it's the biggest. Migos, Quavo, and all those guys. So Lil Baby is kind of the same. I feel like the top rappers just come in from just straight. It's like quantity over quality a little bit. What do you think about when you see somebody with 50 albums with 20 songs?
It immediately makes me think about Lil Wayne, who, in my opinion, is a great rapper. He's, you know, he is kooky and eccentric, but he is a great rapper.
Totally.
And so he's in a category of his own. I wouldn't put him in a category with these hood rappers and these, you know, these quality over or quantity over quality types. That being said, Wayne has an amazing catalog, like mixtapes on mixtapes on mixtapes. Like before he started putting out the Carter series, I mean, like Jay-Z said, this shit need a verse from Jeezy. I might send this to the mixtape Wheezy. Like he was known as the mixtape Wheezy back in the day in the early 2000s because he fucking put work in.
Just like a legend.
A legend, yeah, totally a legend. And it's crazy to me how he can have all that music and then still put out albums with new and interesting and clever bars. Like he hasn't run out of things to write about, you know.
Yeah.
It doesn't ever feel watered down. So yeah, he's a genius, I think. Love Wayne. And yeah, guys like Lil Baby or who do we have right now?
Lil Baby's kind of that guy now.
He's kind of that guy right now. He's filled that.
He's hit a certain plateau. Yeah, he's that character. It's like anything you see him on a feature or a song from him, it's like you want to hear it.
Yeah,
you see what it's about.
Yeah,
I love Lil Baby.
He's got some intangible factor about him as well. Like, on paper, he's not like you know. If you were going to say, what is a rapper? Like on paper, he's probably not going to score high, but somehow he's just like, people still listen to him. I don't know.
You just love the rawness and the authenticness. And I think like he didn't do music his whole life. I think his story was, and you know, I could be loosely off a little bit on this, but I think he went to jail at like maybe 21 or a pretty young age because he was actually doing drug dealing and gang type affiliated stuff. And when he got out of jail, he just like really wanted to, wanted to change his life or focus on rapping. He's like, I'm going to do this. Somebody told him he had some potential. He could spit some bars, and he just took it and ran with it. And I think within 2 or 3 years or something ridiculous, this guy's name he got some features with Gunna and just started going up, you know what I mean? Really quick.
Really
quick. Like come out of jail with just the mindset to kill pretty much.
The mindset to kill, the timing was right. Just all these things come together to make someone like that.
He's just the real deal, and I think he's the voice of the streets.
Yeah, he's the voice of the streets for sure.
And some of his songs I don't like, and that's the thing on Gucci and them. It's like these aren't my favorite artists personally, but I respect them. I love some hood shit, you know. I like to be in with just the bangers and the beats. To me, I love just any banging songs. But that's not like I cannot listen to a whole Gucci album or like you just find the few that you like and then the rest are and that's the quality.
I feel you. It's more for like, okay, we're all about to do shots now. Which song should we put on? It's not like I'm in a mood, I need to put this album on. For me at least.
Exactly.
Right? But maybe for some people like that music really resonates with. They are gonna throw that album on and just have it on repeat all day because like he's representing them, right?
Like what he's saying is their daily lingo with their friends, right? It's like that's the diversity of this world actually. And with me, I'm pretty generic with my music taste. Like honestly, I like to know what's hot. Like I like to stay with whatever's present. I listen to tons of young artists, like 19, 18, 17, 21, just that whole range. Like, because great music artists come in any random ages, size, body. Like you just don't know.
I was surprised to find out. Come on now, Baby Keem is like 20 years old, 21 years old. You listen to his music, he sounds so like sure of himself and so experienced and so mature and like he knows what he's doing. It doesn't sound unpolished, you know what I mean? So my God.
I love that album. I think it is probably like the best rap album of this last year that I can remember.
I think it might be mine. And
it's better than Kendrick's for me.
And the mixing. I can't find the credits, but I'm pretty sure it's Ali because I know Ali's does everyone in that camp. He does Kendrick and everybody. But my goodness, the mixes on that album, dude, I'm fascinated by like current sounds and like, you know, what people sound like in 2022 versus in 2000. And I'm constantly going back and like listening to vocal tones and sounds and comparing pop to rap to this artist. Like I nerd out on that shit.
Yeah.
And to my ears, that new Baby Keem record sounds cleaner and louder and brighter and punchier than anything out right now. Like, period.
It probably does, and that's probably why subtly one of the reasons why it's literally my favorite rap album of the. It's just such a. It's so good.
Oh, everything about it hits. It hits right. It feels good, even if you don't understand what he's saying. Let's say you're Russian and you don't even speak English. You hear it. It feels good to the ear still.
Yeah, it's just
so well done.
Fun. Some songs, the lyrics, the content, the fun value is definitely there, you know, with the flows and stuff. I love Range Brothers a lot. That's a song I banged like on my bike, just cruising, like, because it gets me so hype. You know what I mean? Just,
I feel you. Yeah. No, I
that's
like
the
that
one that starts
too.
with Top of the Morning. Top of the
Morning.
Right?
It just keeps going.
That's I love that song. It's the fucking best.
So nice. Yeah. Well, I think we have pretty similar tastes on that.
And you know he's related to Kendrick, right?
Well, I thought they were like half brothers or something like that.
Or cousins, or like first cousins. So that's probably why he's hitting with this level of polish. He's been like kind of behind the scenes, I think, with Kendrick for maybe 3 years or 2 years now.
Subtly, like the backup quarterback under Aaron Rodgers, like learning the playbook, and then and now he like literally, okay, it's game day, and you're like, okay, I know this shit.
He's like, I'm getting a little bit washed up now. He's like, take my disciple, pretty much, because
right.
When some people first heard him, they're going to say that this guy sounds exactly like Kendrick, or like he's copying Kendrick a little bit. That's what I first thought when I first heard him. And then I read the article. I'm like, oh, Baby Keem, new artist related to Kendrick. And then I noticed featured in like 5 of his songs. Like they're clearly working together. So it makes sense to me.
Yeah.
That he can have that style and evolve it even further.
Like, I think so. It does sound a little more evolved because it's more melodic. It's more melodic. And there's more of an R&B edge to it than a lot of Kendrick stuff. I never have been a fan of Kendrick Lamar. I'm just going to come out and say that right now.
Crazy.
It just doesn't do anything for me. I think it's a lot of it is the racial and political driven lyrics, and a lot of that, it just sounds like he's always just in a bad mood, or like he's got a chip on his shoulder, and I'm like, well, I'm trying to be entertained. I don't need a lecture. But I just don't. I've never been a fan of the beats either. It's just like, it's not a flavor that I enjoy. I can appreciate a lot of other things about it, like the mixing and the recording quality, and he's a gifted lyricist for sure, but not a fan of it. However, on the Baby Keem tip, it's like you said, he took that style and kind of evolved it a little more, and I'm hearing a lot of the same stuff, but with more of an R&B edge and more of like a modern, I don't know, like other levels beyond that, and I'm into.
Yeah,
for me, that's like if it's food, that's a flavor I like.
Kendrick really fell off for me like 5 or 6 years ago, to be honest. I was on his first one, that Section 80. I love that mixtape. Like, but you're right on the racially charged stuff. I think we chatted about that before. Like, it's sometimes a little bit much, and him with J. Cole too. It's like, I just don't want to listen to their music. I'm sorry. Like, in the last few years, it's like too political. Yeah. It just depends on the mood you're looking for. I need some high tempo stuff.
Yeah. I want to be entertained,
Same.
That's sort of the reason that I stick to certain movie genres as well. Like, I'm not, like, I've seen Schindler's List, but I'm not seeking out that type of film on a regular basis.
You respect it, but you only watch it once, right?
There you go. You know what I mean? Like, I just worked all day. I'm tired. I just need something to, like, kind of not think too hard about. I want to watch and just be entertained. Just like make me feel good. Anyways, so so back to like music and vocals and stuff. We mentioned Moneybagg Yo a few minutes ago, and I wanted to get your thoughts about who are some of your favorite, not rappers specifically, but like who is your favorite vocal sound these days? Because the older I get, and the more, the longer I'm engineering and doing this, and my ears are getting more in tune, I'm hearing things more and more on levels that I never understood before, and appreciating things in new ways. And now I can hear artists that I'm not really feeling the music, but my ear just catches a sound, and I'm like, ooh, wow, like, what are they doing to that voice? What are they doing? How are they doing that? So for me, Moneybagg Yo has one of my favorite rap vocal sounds at the moment. Him and DaBaby, they have my favorite vocal sounds at the moment. Who are some of your favorites?
Yeah, Okay. I listen to a lot of different shit and I cycle through a lot of new music quickly. Like that's the thing. Like I just try it out and if it doesn't catch my ear, I probably will never listen to it again. But and then the ones I love, I keep going back to them. Moneybagg Yo is also one of my favorites for sure. Like the first time I heard him, I forget what song it was. It might have been featured with Young Thug or something like that. Anyways, I heard him on a feature. His voice is just so tough. You know what I mean? It's so official. He's got that lowness to it, just kind of that strong mid-range. His voice is like warm and official. So
It's warm. I'm glad you pointed that out because he does have that like that assertive tone about it, but it's when you listen to it, you turn it up and it doesn't get harsh or brittle. It's just like it's got a really nice smooth top end on it.
Yeah, and you just mentioning that, I think that's why I like it because I literally have tinnitus now. I literally have that ringing in my ear. So when people, you know, some of these artists, their vocals are so loud.
Yeah.
And the high-end boost at whatever 10K or 12K is so sharp.
Lot of saturation, a lot of brightness, a lot of like it sounds like a buzzing edginess, right?
Yeah.
Which is a lot about, that's a big part of that modern sound. Like you did not hear that in the 2000s at all, ever.
No.
So that's like a new thing. But when it's done tastefully and correctly,
The right frequencies, yes.
your ear is like, oh yeah, like give me that, like give me more of that, right?
Just kind of opens it up like you were talking about.
Yeah.
It just opens
and I
the
hear it
vocal right up.
I hear it done incorrectly. I do it incorrectly trying to emulate other artists. I practice that. I play with those sounds, but DaBaby's got a really good, also like he's got a really deep voice, but they mix it very mid-range heavy, like 4K, like sizzly, all that upper stuff is really prominent, but but while keeping the bottom in the vocal. So there's just like this whole mix of frequencies hitting you, and it's just full and it's satisfying to the ear, like to my ear anyhow. I don't, like I said, I don't necessarily fuck with what he's saying, but it's like I'm like, damn, your vocal sounds sick. And that's what I'm getting at too. Like Moneybagg Yo is like a hood rapper. I'm like, I can't relate to anything he's talking about, but I like the sound of how the vocals mixed.
Totally.
And I can appreciate that.
Totally. For me, Gunna is another good one. He's just
Gunna, the new Gunna.
Gunna's in jail right now or whatever. Yeah.
This is news to me. Oh shit.
Gunna and Young Thug both got arrested with those RICO charges or whatever. It's like some really bad. They're affiliated to street gangs and stuff, and they literally have had them in jail for like 4 months or something, and they're not getting released. And they're like about to have a trial for some big shit.
They both just had albums. The new Gunna album I like a lot.
Me too. I love Gunna.
I'm glad you mentioned that. Gunna 6 years ago, different vocal sound. The new Gunna album I like a lot. It's really smooth. It's really pleasing. They didn't overdo it, and the low end is phenomenal on some of those. That one, I think I have it open behind me. What's it called? Oh, come on now.
Oh yeah, I put on that track
I'm gonna
there
cheat.
with
We're gonna. Oh, maybe I'll. Oh, I don't know if I open Apple Music right now. Might freak out.
are you thinking
Anyhow,
about what happened to
Push and
Virgil?
P. Push and P. That's the name
yeah.
of the song. God damn, the low end in that. Ridiculous. But the vocals like clear as shit right in the center and not harsh. So like props to whoever's working on the new Gunna.
The
like that
ones-
sound.
The slimy sound. Then when Atlanta, like I don't know.
Well, that's Alex Toomey doing a lot of Young Thug stuff.
Okay.
And a lot of those Atlanta rappers. Alex Toomey used to do some of the earlier Gunna albums too, but
Really?
I Wikipedia the new Gunna album, and it was this dude I'd never heard of, and I looked him up. He's got an Instagram with like 8,000 followers. He's just like a dude.
Some like hood guy maybe, or
He looked like a white guy. He could be hood and white.
yeah, he might be that 100%. He probably.
But
can't.
like a guy like us, just mixing Gunna's new album. And I
That's
was
what
like,
I always
good for
thought.
you, man. Like
When you said Alex Sherman, I'm like, I should look this up. But something in my mind, when I think of that Atlanta rap scene and like
Yeah.
where so much hot music is coming out, but they have some different shit there too.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's where the new waves are boiling under the surface that are
Totally.
about to kick off.
dude.
I actually saw this SoundCloud documentary that got emailed to me about a new genre that they're now talking about. It's
Oh,
It's
crazy.
the new Atlanta genre.
Holy shit.
It's called plug music.
Plug music.
And the descriptor, and this is like a lot of these young kids are now making this, and they think it's so cool in Atlanta. So apparently, whatever's cool in Atlanta will be cool everywhere in a few years.
Honestly, man, like, and all coming from hip hop as the origin point, right? But you know, we had trap, and then we had drill took off for a couple of years. I guess drill is still relevant and big in Europe.
Yeah,
but this new plug music, interested to hear that when that comes to the surface.
I think it involves video gamey type synth sounds, like those really high, you know, frequency.
Oh, like 8-bit stuff, like
yeah. Internet sounds is another descriptor for that. They're calling it internet video gamey type computer sounds.
Wow.
With like trap drums and like beats, and the vocals are just kind of like, you know, they get a lot of influence probably from Young Thug and those type of guys. So it's interesting.
Oh, that'll be very cool.
But sorry, whenever I think of that music, I think of people drinking lean in small studios, sometimes make it to the big studio because the underground scene there is so good. These are the ones who don't have any followers yet. So I just feel like there's so many good engineers who are just young guys like us, 24, 25. I'm almost 30, but 30. You know, anybody can buy the Apollo and start learning. And for some reason, I just feel like they're making some of this dope-ass trap music without anybody who has a name, you know what I mean? It's just like guys from that they know who are all working on music together.
Oh yeah,
and trying shit.
And like I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if this new plug music is literally like a 15-year-old kid that's just playing around on Fruity Loops and was like, yo, this sounds hot. And then some big rappers in Atlanta were like, yo, have you heard this kid's beats? And then some kid's beats gets paired up with some bigger names, and now they make an album out of that, and then they make a genre out of that.
Exactly.
You know?
That's how it goes. Like Metro Boomin was a little bit like that.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And I've met them. Trust me, I've met these kids, literally 15, that are incredibly talented, that are just like working off their laptops and just making bangers, and you're just like
exactly, with a MacBook Air, and you're like, God damn it, I got this.
Breaking all the rules. Don't know the first thing about gain staging or engineering or mixing, but it's fire and it's hitting.
And I'm glad that you said that, because I feel like these really cool sounds come from breaking all the rules.
Totally.
Because like with Gunna's vocals, the ones that I love were the earlier ones at times. Like,
oh yeah,
what's that mixtape? Slime Season or something. I
think it's got like 4 Slime Seasons, or at least
something like that. It might be like Slime Season 3. It's like a lot of green on the cover, and he's got like a snake tongue. It looks pretty gangster. I love that album. But I'm just hearing some shit with the vocals that I'm trying to figure it out, but I can't really put my finger on it.
Tell me more.
I'm thinking maybe it's sending your vocal to another track with a full auto tune, like on as hard as possible. Maybe putting the auto tune a little bit slower on the main. Probably having many vocal layers with some chorus type like spatial effects. Because like on certain words, you know, when you listen to music and on like the certain word at the end of a rap phrase or something that they keep hitting, like you just hear so much harmonics, or like it's kind of like certain words, I catch this really trippy like effect, but it's so clean and it's not harsh, and it just...
And we're talking more frequency based than effect based, like not like a throw delay at the end of a word, or like a reverb throw where you would automate the reverb just at the end to fill a space. Like we're talking about...
Well, that stuff's probably in there too, just to get it that super wet kind of sound for sure. But I just mean like in the actual vocal itself, kind of like if you were just using a doubler, or like do you have ever used Sound Toys Micro Shift?
Oh yeah, I got the Sound Toys. I got all of them, man.
Like those type of effects, you know how you add them on, so they're pretty much just making your vocal a little bit louder, but they just like add something to it.
It gives it stereo information in a way, right? Like the Micro Shift spreads it out, and it gives it like choruses left and right. Cool. I haven't picked up on what you're talking about, but it sounds really cool. I have yet to like discover that in anything I've heard. So maybe you can give me some examples, like after the show. Yeah, because that sounds really cool.
I'll have to send you a couple tracks. We should talk about your hardware here. That's
if you want to. Yeah,
that's getting me excited, or just different hardware and different plugins that
So
you've been loving? I saw that Manly up there also. That's when.
Yeah, the Manly Core. I just recorded 2 albums of 2 different artists with that unit and with the Manly reference cardioid microphone. So paired it with that preamp, Manly mic, Manly pre. That was about 2 years ago that I got that set, and that was a milestone in my life. Like that was like, you know, losing your virginity, getting married, getting the Manly pair, like that level of shit. Because the vocals that I got with that pair of that combination,
the pre and the mic,
like the vocals I dreamed about as a teenager, of like listening to my favorite artists and being like, why does that vocal sound so professional? And I'm getting that sound with this combination. Like it's insane. I could not be happier. And very little work afterwards to enhance it, because it's coming through just so detailed already. So I'm loving it. Tubes rule. That's Manly's slogan, and tubes fucking do rule, man. Like the tube sound is 3-dimensional. It's got depth. It's got color. I just love tubes, and I never really knew much about them until getting these pieces.
That's crazy. That's a beautiful piece right there, that Manly. Like I've never seen that one, but I have the Manly Voxbox UAD, and I want to learn how to use that a little bit.
So this is the little brother of the Voxbox. The Voxbox has like a de-esser built in, and I think it's actually, from what I've read, it's got better. Like this is a class B, and the Manly Voxbox is class A. So that's like,
that actually, that's like the levels of
that's
their
like the levels of like the transformers that they're using, and the components and the wiring and the circuitry. So there's there's like literal levels of gear. Class A, class B. If you're buying like, you know, the budget $100 compressor at Tom Lee, that's like a class C or lower. I don't know. But
who would be doing that at this point?
Honestly?
I don't know. But I know that they're there for a reason.
They're there for a reason.
Somebody's buying them.
So yeah, class A. But the Manly Core, I love it. I'm mixing with it lately. Actually, I don't have it patched in to the mic. I just have it as an insert. I think I was telling you about this at work the other day, but it's amazing. I mean, it's a whole chain. So it's compression, EQ, and then a limiter at the end.
Okay.
And I can just plug that on Pro Tools as an insert and use it like a plugin, but then adjust the parameters here, and it's gorgeous. Like it's amazing. The way that hardware reacts to sounds is different than plugins. Like I'm not going to get into the hardware versus analog plugin war right now, but they sound different. They just do. And hardware, you can hit it harder. You can hit it harder than you can hit plugins.
That's what a lot of people, I guess like
it's more forgiving. It just is. It deals with it in a different way. So that's a beautiful piece. I'm using this Shelford for everyone listening. I know this is just absolutely thrilling because you can't see what we're pointing at, but the Shelford channel strip made by Neve.
Yeah.
I'm using that in a similar way right now. That's also a mic pre, but I'm using it as a plugin right now because it's got the whole
EQ.
Everything. This one has a saturation in it as well, like 2 different, a silk blue and a silk red. I have yet to even try the mic pre on it yet, because I bought it for the old studio, which I left, and I had a bunch of gear and I just kept it. So I decided to keep it instead of selling it, and I'm glad that I've kept these things because they're teaching me a lot about audio. Hardware does not come with presets, so I have
the real hardware.
Yeah, I have to. I have to spend the time and fiddle and twist knobs and use my ears and just be like, okay, let's try this. I guess break some rules, and then you end up with some pretty interesting sounds.
I think that's ultimately the best way to do it. Like I've just started getting better at mixing, I'd say, in the last couple of years, just starting to figure some stuff out, and mixing with my ears sounds generic, but it to any music producers who are starting off, that's, you just have to listen more than look at anything, because that's how you break the rules in a way. And you were talking about those producers who just are in their bedroom on a MacBook, on a little computer, just making crazy songs.
Yeah, that didn't go to audio engineering school and don't understand the fundamentals. And trust me, I've met tons of them. I've had sessions with them, but the music's still fire, you know.
And they know it sounds good to them when it hits their ear. They're just like, that sounds good.
Yeah.
It's good, the mic
for
level
sure,
here.
man. And I think any kind of art throughout the ages has gone through a phase like that, you know, like the Renaissance, for example, where they started painting like depth and color and like different forms of nudity and stuff in paintings, where paintings back in the day were just like one dimensional. And but it was like, oh, don't do that. But now look at it, like we look at the Renaissance as like one of the greatest periods in human history now. So because people were breaking rules and trying new shit.
That's a good point. You can only find that by breaking the rules. So that's what we're gonna do.
So the
That's
the stuff at the bottom is not patched in, like I was saying. Your vocal today is going through that 1176, the purple one.
Yeah, the warm audio.
No, that's Purple Audio. Purple Audio.
Oh, okay.
So Purple Audio is a small manufacturer of gear, and it's the guy who started the company used to work for for Universal Audio, and he used to be an engineer who would fix 1176s, and he left, started his own company, and made 1176s because he knew everything about them. He used to fix them on a daily basis. So this Purple Audio 1176 is a clone of the Universal Audio, but better.
I freaking love like my favorite plugin might be the 1176 Universal Audio, which, you know, is probably somewhat close to the hardware, and that thing's probably the same as the hardware.
Amazing.
It's just adds so much grit to your vocal
Yeah.
when you hit that as the first compressor.
It's my favorite vocal compressor easily. The plugin and this one, but this one I don't use as often just because it's a little bit more work and I have to print it and But yeah, amazing sound, right? Like
Yeah, that's like the one compressor where I feel like I'm starting to be able to actually hear the sound of it. You know what I mean? And maybe the LA2A a little bit, because the LA2A just mellows things out a little.
LA2A is nice.
And
Yeah.
or if you just want to hit it softly, but
Really
the
nice.
1176, it adds crunchiness to your vocal, like literally.
Do you ever get your ratio dialed in and your gain reduction and then just switch between ratios, like 4, 8, 12, 20, and just to hear the difference in tone?
That's a good idea. I should try that.
That
Just
when I first started doing that and hearing what ratio did to change the sound, it's crazy. Like how many new avenues you can open up with your vocal sound. Just like specifically with tone, but when you go from 4 to 1 to 8 to 1, you notice that it's grabbing it less, but it's grabbing it in a different way and shaving off certain peaks, almost brightening the sound. It's really,
Sorry,
really,
when you go
really
to,
cool.
when you go to 8 to 1, eh?
Yeah, 8 to 1.
Oh,
It'll
okay.
compress less, like your needle will move less, but it's still hitting and it sounds more aggressive.
Yeah. I
Right.
was watching YouTube the other day, and actually I was like watching some guy talk about the ratio and the attack and release of a compressor, which you can never learn enough about. Or like you can, but you also kind of can't, you know what I mean? If you see a video, it's like secrets to compression. You're like, okay.
Still learning how to dial it in, you know.
And this guy seemed pretty good, and he was just describing it, and then I was kind of playing around with it a little bit later that day. He was like, the attack on the compressor as you go longer puts the sound more back. Like literally it almost sounds a little bit further away, and it's taking that away. But when you put the attack very fast, it's like closer to you literally. And that was just a nice little descriptor for me, and I tried it, and you know, it seemed pretty true actually. And that's something I'm going to use now while mixing with my ears more.
Yes.
Is there's no rules, you know. You crank the knob. If you're making a hard trap song and you want to sound like Moneybagg Yo, but even though he has that softness, he has a smoothness coming to that strong vocal. Like we don't know, he might turn the attack down a little bit too.
Well,
His aren't too harsh.
totally. I know what you mean, and it's
It's sweet.
it's like they've got the sound, dialed in with the EQ and saturation and everything, but then the positioning, that's the key descriptor, I think, that we're trying to nail here, is actually where visually, if you could visualize your mix as a space or as a painting, where's the vocal sitting visually, like front to back, right? And the attack and release is what I've found to be the way to do that, right? Like you slow the release down and it'll just slowly move to the back. Or if you have a John Mayer all the way up, it's pumping and coming and hitting you like every word, right?
And that was just last week that I watched that video, but just kind of putting that into what I think about now when I'm using compressor. I guess like for all this modern rap music type genres and trap, you probably always want to hit with pretty fast attacks on everything. But when you're doing like a guitar,
sometimes you can hear it. Yeah, sometimes you can hear it's a little bit too much, like Lil Durk. I can hear the compression, a little too much. Kind of still like it though, because it's a little hood. It's a little like grimy. But I can hear the compression in those vocals, like a lot of that stuff. So I don't know, but it still sounds good. Like it's not wrong, I guess. It's just a flavor.
Yeah. That's interesting because, yeah, your teacher, you know, in a music type engineering place would say bring that vocal to the front, but then of course, you want to bring it to the front, but you want it to sit right. And it's all about the vibe of the song.
Oh, man. Getting that lead vocal in the right spot is everything, isn't it?
It really is. Damn, what was I just about to say about that? Because, yeah, I would think about reverb in that way, right? To push things further to the back or to the front. But compression is everything, hey?
Well,
so learning more
I started a couple years ago compressing reverbs.
Yeah.
Which is a whole nother can of worms. But yeah, I mean, compression is really like if you had to have two things, I would almost have compression over EQ if I only had one thing. Because I feel like a compressor can act like an EQ, but an EQ can't act like a compressor. If you think about that, you can't dynamically control sound with EQ,
no,
but you can control color with compression.
Yeah, just very subtle kind of like tonal type EQ tweaking. So I guess if you knew the right like compressor to put on something, you're EQing a little bit there.
You've heard like the all buttons in, like absolutely smashed drum sound with an 1176 where it's just like so grimy and distorted and loud.
Yeah.
That's just one compressor. It sounds like there's 20 things on that. You couldn't do that with just an EQ, right?
Yeah, that's true. Obviously, you need both. Like, you need both.
You need both, but I'm saying, like, if you had to have one, I think I would have compression.
Yeah, no, I agree with you.
That'd be the one thing. Yeah,
and if I would want to,
amazing.
Compression is just the more you get into music, you realize you just need to do more of it.
Yeah,
unfortunately,
more compression.
Like,
more compression.
How much compression would you normally take off of a lead vocal? Like, do you just throughout your chain? What kind of levels of gain reduction do you think you're getting on a lead vocal?
So usually track with a bit, like 1 to 3. And then...
and that's recorded in.
That's recorded in, so that's printed in. And then the beginning of the chain is like, you know, probably 1176.
With like
7 to 10 dB.
Yeah.
And then like an RVox or a Kramer Pi or an LA2A or something like that after to like smooth it out more.
At the very end. And
then maybe I'm using CLA vocals to throw in like a bit of parallel compression in. Love that plugin, by the way. So yeah, I don't know. What is that? Like 20 dB?
Yeah.
Maybe. But it depends on the song too. Like sometimes, I don't know, sometimes you don't need a lot. And then sometimes if it's a really dense mix, you want to just absolutely bury that vocal and just have it like tucked in and then bring it out with some EQ maybe.
Totally.
But that would be like, I guess my answer to that is that'd be around my average. I'm just trying to think.
I feel like that would be the exact number I was going to say before too.
Yeah.
But it took me more years to get to that. You know what I mean? When I first started making music for like 5 years, and super tip for anybody.
Super tip, you're probably not compressing enough.
You're vocal enough. And for anybody doing their own vocals. Yeah. And now we're not going to talk about this no more because you guys can get onto that. But
I think try that. Try more. And try compression in a series. Don't get one compressor to do all of it, but like try 3 or 4 each doing 5 or 6 dB.
Yeah, exactly.
In different
push them
ways.
To where they sound, till where it's very compressed but sounding good still. You don't
Yeah.
want to bring that disgusting digital distortion. That's something you ain't looking for.
Totally. Yeah, and I mean that goes for all instruments in the mix as well. Like I love LA2A on a 808, and I never used to put compression on other instruments. I'd compress like the mix bus, or I'd compress vocal, obviously. But once I started putting like a little bit on everything, man, I mean, it's just everything comes together, and then on subgroups as well, and
Yeah.
before you know it, like you've just got compression everywhere, but the mix is starting to sound like one piece of music as opposed to just sounds in the speaker, right?
Totally.
It's gluing everything together.
Just perfectly glued together. Like you saying it that way, I'm literally seeing it in front of my eyes, like on a mixing board, just with those little I'm just seeing those little green level meters,
Yeah.
and then literal compressors just pressing them all down. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I get so nerdy about it too these days. It's just insane.
And then you
I
can
love soundboard
compress.
compression.
You can compress in without compression too. Like when I discovered saturation,
tape.
that was a game. That's maybe the most game-changing thing ever. Was when I understood the value of saturation, because you get natural compression with saturation, but you also get a volume boost. So if you actually look at it in Pro Tools or Logic, correctly used saturation makes the sound louder, but the meter is actually moving less. So you're getting volume
It's-
back while making it louder. Like doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
It's completely backwards, but when it's done correctly, saturation used all over the place and makes everything full, colorful.
Dirty.
Oh my god, or dirty, but
Dirty
just
and
rich,
warm. Yeah.
harmonically rich, dense.
That's why I'm now legitimately so jealous of looking at your hardware rack and just but that's also why I'm really getting tapped in with the UAD plugins, just hardware emulation plugins,
Yeah.
because you want a little bit of that tube sound, even if it's emulated. You need it. It's so important.
It's so
Like,
important. It's so important.
God.
And the tutorials that I've seen online of Mix with the Masters, or even like Pure Mix Online, or there's a bunch of them where they'll do like a little snippet, and they go to some top engineer studio, and then he breaks down his vocal chain, and there's like 2 things on it, and you're like, well, that doesn't teach me anything. But we're forgetting that those guys are using like a vintage Neve mic pre, like a Telefunken $21,000 mic, or a
Like
C800,
such a rare.
and like
ribbon
amazing converters. So all that stuff is recorded really, 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 really well, and they don't have to do a ton afterwards.
Yeah.
The Leslie Brathwaite videos, he does like Cardi B, and he mixed Pharrell's Happy. And when I watched the Leslie Brathwaite videos and Mix with the Masters, that shit triggered me, because he has literally nothing on the mix bus, nothing on the mix bus, and there's like 5 plugins on the whole mix, and you're like, well, I guess this was interesting to look at, but I haven't learned anything.
He's like hiding all the secrets. He's like,
I don't know if he's hiding all the secrets, but it's just like,
He
this
just
is all I
recorded
do. And
through
he's like, this
compressors
is
and
all I
EQs.
do. Ha, that's literally all I do.
It's like, no, you probably had 20 engineer assistants like literally line that signal through 2 compressors, like EQs, and like just to get it in there recorded that way, probably, or who knows.
But I think the point I'm trying to make is that the stuff that he's receiving is all recorded phenomenally well, right?
Yeah.
With amazing gear, and it's getting all that color and warmth and density and vibe already, and then he doesn't need to throw a ton of plugins on it.
Totally. He just.
But on the
touches it.
flip side, us, or artists just coming up, or people aspiring to be,
working out of
big
their bedroom.
musicians, big engineers, we don't have the luxury of owning $21,000 mics and a vintage Neve preamp, or a console, or like really high-end converters. So we do have to put 8 plugins on the vocal.
Oh
right?
yeah, no, 1,000,000%.
So when I understood that, I wasn't so mad at him anymore for using 2 plugins on the mix.
Yeah.
Because we just can't, we can't use a cheap pre and a budget mic and get like a Doja Cat vocal. I just can't. You've got to have everything at the beginning to capture the sound really, really well.
Well, yeah, and I honestly think you can't You can to a certain extent, but you need to get a good microphone if you're recording vocals. Something,
everything.
Something like good, you know, not something middle range, not just $1,000 or well, like everybody, there's different levels. You can get some good Audio Technica mics and different stuff, but like, yeah, maybe $1,000 and up will get you something pretty good, but you can't.
I would still say
it'll
that
never
that
sound
is
the same.
the bullshit range.
Like below 1,000.
Yeah. There's the okay, this works to record a sound, and then there's I have a good vocal now, and everything in between that is kind of bullshit. Whether it's like a $500 to $700 to $1,000, like there's no difference in that.
And you'll regret it.
Yeah, you'll regret it. You're just like
after
you're
1 year.
scrolling on Gearspace forums and Reddit forums for days, reading reviews. What's this? What's that? I'm here to tell you, it's all a waste of time. It's all a waste of time.
That's funny.
It's the bullshit range. You want good vocals, you have to get a good microphone. You just do. You want to sound good, you've got to invest in that.
Yeah. Talking about the saturation, do you know a plugin called Oxford Inflator? I've been using
The cheater plugin.
Yeah, literally.
It's like cheating.
When you talk about getting that extra loudness through saturation or like out of nowhere.
Or whatever mysterious fucking shit's going on under the hood of that plugin. I'm not sure. I avoid it. Like, it's just too...
It's almost a little bit too easy. That's the
Yeah.
funny thing. That is the funny thing. Like, I forget about it because now my plugin library is getting so deep, you know what I mean? So I'm trying to just use new ones that I have, use more like hardware emulations.
Nice. Yeah.
But I'm almost thinking I need to get back to using the Oxford Inflator because unfortunately loudness is almost, you know, it's so important. Like people listen to music, but are that you know, they don't listen to it for every lyric. They don't listen to it for every engineering technique. They just want to catch the vibe and they want it to be loud in their headphones.
Yeah, and the reality is if your song gets on a playlist and it's the quietest song on the playlist, people are gonna think it's the worst song.
Yeah, that's a
They're
more
gonna be like, "What's
elegant
wrong with
way
this?"
of saying what I was trying to say there. So it's like any method, whether it's cheating or not.
You know? So yeah, loudness is important. Loudness was something that I was so intimidated by for such a long time. It was such a mystery to me. It was so misunderstood, I think, and I was doing it the wrong way. But for me, the biggest contributing factors to getting better at that have been, like I was saying, saturation on everything, but understanding mid-range. And it's only in like the last year that I really feel like I've got a grasp on mid-range now. I'm not saying I'm good at it, but it's like it's like a new chapters opened up where I'm like, okay, now here's another thing in my tool belt that I have a grasp of, that I understand. In mid-range, man, when a song is like dull and pillowy and just not quote unquote loud, it's because the mid-range sucks.
Yeah.
And I go back and listen to my mixes from, 5-6 years ago, and I know exactly what's wrong with it now. It's not like it was still hitting like -9, -8, but it's like, why does this mix suck? It's not exciting. Because there's not, the mid-range was not there.
You got to mix that mid-range, right? Yeah, it's so true, because like people get caught up in the low end and the high end, right?
Totally.
Where all the
boost
fun's
10K, boost that airband on the Moog.
Literally,
You
it's
know?
like there's so many plugins that are going to boost low and high end, but
Yeah.
like you forget about the mid-range,
The
which
mid-range.
is the main range. You know,
Yeah.
that's the working class people of your
That's
vocal
the-
frequency.
Those are the grocery baggers of the music world. Yeah, I mean, that's where everything lives. That's where our ears are
That's
the most sensitive.
Exactly. It's where you're hearing most of your information. So
Yeah.
it's so true.
So true. So 4K, 4,000 hertz has been my nemesis for years. Fighting
that
it,
harshness?
fighting it. Oh my God, turn
Yeah.
that down, carve that out, multi-band that out.
Same.
But now
same.
I'm realizing that's the exact same frequency that cuts. Like, not enough 4K, your vocal sucks. Too much 4K,
Yeah.
unlistenable. So
So
it's
you
like
went through a
getting
bit of a
that
phase where you
perfect.
sucked a little bit too much out.
You got to get that right though. But
Yeah.
like, if you take I've been just taking too much out of it for years.
You lose a little bit of the
And I'm losing the clarity in that, like where it cuts, where it's like, where, rappers call it crispy, like make my vocal crispy. Where like,
Yeah.
I was talking about DaBaby earlier, like the vocal is so damn crispy, but it doesn't hurt your ears at all. It's so tastefully done. It's well done. And it's like, a lot of top end, but it's also the mid range is there. 2, 3, 4K is like buried there, but it's controlled.
Just the right amount. Do you use a lot of multiband on your vocals?
I try not to. I think for
One of
me,
my
multiband
friends,
is like a correction tool. And since I've been getting really well recorded vocals in the last few years with the Manley pair, I don't use a ton of multiband. No.
Yeah, like one of my friends, he's a good engineer. Like he's very creative with his engineering style, and he has a good modern sound. But he's just obsessed with multiband on the vocal. And he's like, I'll have bands on everything, like controlling everything. But when I've done stuff like that in the past, like trying it out, thinking that that's some sort of secret, multiband your vocals, like learn how to multiband them, right? Is when you A/B it and you got to go back to listening with your ears and be like, is this better now or worse?
Totally.
And a lot of times I'd be like, it's thinner now. A little bit too much 4K is out. Like it really changes the mojo of a vocal. It's too tonally shaping. I look
Absolutely.
at multiband as a tonal shaper, literally.
It is. Yeah.
It's
Oh,
like
for
an
sure,
EQ more you know.
Well, because you're kind of compressing frequency ranges, so it really is.
Yeah, it changes the tone so much.
It works for, I'll use it for like proximity effect, or if the vocal is really like all over the place dynamically, like a singer that's hitting multiple ranges. But a lot of the stuff I've been doing the last few years is just trappy hip hop stuff, which is pretty monotone for the most part. And like I'm not really using my multiband for that.
Yeah, I don't use it too much anymore. One nice little secret that I just kind of figured out lately was throwing that Pultec EQ P1A with the 12K boost. I just saw it in a video, and this guy's talking about how that really opens your vocal up. He's like, just do that 12K, put like 5 dB or something, and it's a subtle thing, but it's perfect. I like, and I want to learn how to use that Mag Airband too. Let's see which one's
top
better.
end's dangerous. 12K boosting 12K can at first sound like brighter. At first is always better. Brighter is always better right when you first do it, and then later on you might be like, oh wait, why? Oh, okay, because I have too much top. Okay. But it gives you that immediate gratification, right? Instantly, like, oh, brighter, sizzly. My ears are like waking up. What is that? But I tend to be really careful with top end on vocals. I've actually started low passing vocals in the last year and a bit. So I'll just put like I'll cut everything up to like 13K sometimes, even down to like 11K.
Wow.
With a high cut. Yeah. And that's not removing it completely, right? It's not like a brick wall at 11K.
Because there's a certain slope on there.
There's a slope on it, but it's still what it is doing is like taming that top end. You're kind of reshaping it so that later on you can add more shit to it without it sounding too bright.
That's a great point. So
that I was scared of for the longest time, because every time I did it, I lost that sparkle, I lost that top, and I was like, oh no. But now that my mid range is better, I can get away with cutting a lot of that top out and then ending up with a lot smoother vocal that's more controlled.
Totally. And yeah, exactly. You're right there. You can't just slap it on every vocal with 12K and put 5 to like 10 dB. I guess it's just what my vocals needed, because with my tinnitus, literally I have these noise generators that I usually wear when I'm like working on music now, but anyways, I have that ringing sound in my ears. So I think I really stray away and I don't boost harshness too much. So at the very end of my chain, that really helped out a lot in a couple of these songs. Just bringing back what I never even boosted at all.
Yeah.
Or what that I may have cut a little bit of. It's crazy though how in your mix, like frequencies, I like being in control of the whole mix, and that's why I like mixing, even though it's tough. It takes a lot of work.
It is tough.
And like ear
mixing
fatigue.
is the hardest thing I've ever done in my whole life. Getting good at mixing. I don't know if I'm good yet, but I mean like learning it.
You never feel like you're found. I feel like you feel like you're always like lost, looking for like new ways or like something
still chasing
better.
the dragon. I'm still chasing the dragon.
Unless
man.
You become the best engineer in the world or something, but like everybody would want that kind of.
But I love it. I love it, and it brings me so much joy. And it seems to come. It comes by naturally for me. I feel like I have an ear. I have rhythm. So music. I've always had a knack for music and sound. So mixing was a good fit for me. But constantly criticizing myself and comparing myself to top level mixers is unhealthy. And I wish I could just sometimes appreciate the music and be in the moment and just be happy that I'm mixing more. I'm trying to get better at that.
Takes away the love of music a little bit.
Love the music a bit more. But it's an ongoing journey. It really is. And what keeps me going are those milestones and those breakthroughs, those learning periods, and discoveries, right? Where I'm like, oh, I don't know how to do that. I don't know how to do that. How are they doing that in the song? What does that sound?
It feels so hard. And then one day you figure it out.
And one day I figure it out, and I'm in here, and it's like I fucking won the lottery.
You're like, fuck yeah.
Like freaking out, and just fuck yeah. Like those moments, they're the greatest, right?
And isn't that with so much in life? You don't know, you're struggling for so long, looking for something, and you don't know where you found it. Just one day you hear your song or something or your mix, and you're like, whoa, it actually does sound like how these other guys sound. Now it's getting there, and you're just like, I don't know what I did.
Yeah.
It took 3 years, but like it's a nice moment.
Oh man, 100%.
Because that journey, you just go on it. You just learn.
Such a journey.
You go, and then one day you realize you're getting better.
Yeah, and it happens without you realizing it too. You're like, oh, I'm there. Like, or maybe I've been there for couple months now, and then you pump the brakes and get a reality check or change your perspective, and you're like, that sounds like a record.
Yeah, you're like, I can do this though.
I made that.
Yeah,
I guess I can do this.
Totally.
Yeah. So it's
and that's when you know
fun.
when a lot of young people, I know everybody when they're young and or just learning something and struggling to learn it, we want to find the shortcut. You want to find the answers to all your questions right away. But I think once you're getting there a little bit, you really realize like there isn't any answer. You literally just have to put your head down and work at it for 3 years, 2 years, 4 years. That's the only way, because we don't even know how we got here. You know what I mean? If you ask me, maybe it's because I'm an artist and I like to live in the moment, but I'll be like, I don't know, man. I just started, I struggled. I went through struggling phase, went into kind of shitty, but knowing what I'm doing phase. Got into like a little bit better phase, and now I'm like feeling pretty decent.
Yes. And there's no shortcuts. There's no secrets. I like to think about, my wife is sick of me saying this, but comparing food to mixing, like cooking
I always
to mixing.
think about that, bro. It's the best analogy.
I've come up with every analogy in the book that she's probably heard of over and over, and she's like, I just don't get it. I'm not musical. That's fine. But what I'm trying to say is like the chefs can do a cooking show, for example, right? Jamie Oliver can do a cooking show, and he can have all the ingredients out there and tell you exactly what ingredients he used, show you exactly how he did it, and yours is going to suck and his is going to be really good. And mixing is like that too. Like all of our plugins come with presets. Manny Marroquin can do a seminar and tell everybody how to compress a vocal, but my mix is not as good as his mix. And it's like all these secrets, all these discoveries are out there, and they're fine. And sure, we can showcase them, but it's how you put them all together.
Yeah,
it's the full package, right?
And it's literally making mistakes. As funny as that sounds, I literally went through a phase where like I was putting so much exciters and stuff like that just to brighten my own vocal, and god damn it, it was hurting my own ear.
Yeah.
So then you go the other way, you rebound. You're like, oh god, I made that mistake, and then you're like cutting too much out. And you know what I mean? Like there's nothing like making those mistakes and being like mad, like, oh,
they're so important. And now I find myself catching myself early on when I do make mistakes. You know what I mean? And be like, okay, stop. That's the wrong move. Don't. Whereas in the past, I would have made that move, gone on with it for hours, and then probably had to add 2 or 3 plugins to fix that move. You know what I mean? As opposed to just, that was the wrong move. Stop there.
Nip it in the bud.
Nip it in the bud, right? Like, oh, you got too much cayenne pepper. Don't try and cover up your cayenne pepper with a bunch of other stuff. And
just don't throw it in there.
Don't use that. It's wrong for the song, right?
Yeah.
They're mixing food analogy again. So, but yeah, it's experience, man. It's like catch yourself early. Oh, I've made that mistake in the past. Old me did that. New me knows that didn't work on the last 90 mixes. So let's not do that this time.
Yeah, right. It's like that. You got to do something different. You can't do the exact same thing. If you're not getting the result you want in anything in life, if you're doing the exact same thing, something has to change. Doesn't always have to be that big, right?
Yeah.
People always think it's something big. Sometimes it's something very small.
Super small, down to the details, the little nuances. And a great mix or a great dish is all about 100 or 1,000 little moves done correctly. It's not one ingredient. It's not one thing.
It's such a great analogy, because with music, sound-wise, sonically, there's all those different flavors, you know, a nickel compressor sound versus a tube or iron, different materials, all that stuff. The cold, warm, you know, people describing audio with visual type stuff and descriptors. But like, yeah, you might take a chicken breast over here in its own pan and just saute that chicken breast, you know, baste it with butter a little bit, and then throw it in an oven just to do this on top. But over here, you're working on potatoes in a completely different cooking method.
Yes.
And just when you think about music and it all comes back together. And what I was going to say too is, like, with 4K, it's funny how that can build, you know, of course, but it builds up in your mix.
Yeah, and it might not actually be in the vocal. It might be in a guitar or in a synth. That's the problem. But you're hearing it in the vocal because that's the loudest thing in the mix.
So spot on with that. Right. Like, you're talking about the kind of shit that when I'm high and working on music, that like I start thinking about and I can't even like describe it.
You got to write these shits down, dude.
But I know exactly what you're talking about. You hear your final song, you're thinking the vocal's so harsh, but and you're just not sitting right. And it's really probably the 4K from the other instruments literally coalescing with it and the build up. Just shit like that, you know, getting nerdy.
You're speaking my language.
Totally, just getting nerdy.
We got to talk about your album. Your EP. I'd listened to it a couple of times again before the show today, so it's fresh in my memory. Before it came out, you were on the fence about the mastering engineer you were going to use. Tell me how that ended up. What did you end up doing in the end? What was the final product? Did you master it? Tell me.
Great question. Because of course there's a little bit of drama goes, not drama at all. Craig, my friend, and I'll just leave him with his first name, Craig. He did a good job, and ultimately I went with all his masters. He's been in the mastering game for a while. He's a bit older. He has a decent reputation from what I've heard around, and he's got some good gear and stuff. So I just I'll let this guy do what he does. But it's definitely tough when you make, and I'm sure lots of people, this is the new way. I make everything just in my living room on my computer. So I'm the producer, I'm the vocalist, I'm the engineer. So when you do everything yourself, you put so much work into it, you get a certain sound to your whole mix. And then when the mastering engineer comes along and are doing their different versions, right, they might misinterpret what you're thinking about the song.
Totally.
And sometimes just that high-end boost when you're working with the whole track, it really changes things quite a bit. Or if it's too much bass, or if they push the mid-range down a little bit and make your vocal a little bit more to the back or whatever. So yeah, we had some little back and forth, a good conversation. And I made him do a second version, of course. And I tried to be as detailed as possible with my notes. Like, I listened to them probably 5 times in my M50X Audio Technicas. And just try to, and of course, you know, I know it's a touchy thing, especially when you have a personal relationship with somebody. And I know he'd do the job. I just had to be descriptive with exactly what I meant. I was like, that's too much. Like, whatever you do, don't dial it in as much. And
good. So you got there in the end, because it turned out awesome. I mean, I listened to it again, like I said, a few times before today, and I was really impressed. So that was version 2 then that you went with?
That was the second masters.
Nice. Yeah.
One of them does seem a lot softer to me, but that's only in different headphones. On your Genelex, like the second track, I think because there's more bass information and not as much high end, like in the limiter.
I was going to say that about that track actually too.
That's funny.
That I thought it was lacking in mid range a little bit. Like that.
It's probably the mid range. It's like very to the back, my vocal. Actually,
so. Like it's the low end is hitting. The drums are nice, but the vocal's a little too it's lacking clarity, right?
Yeah.
Whereas all the other ones, especially number 3, 27 Club, is that what it's called?
Yeah.
Love the vocal sound on that. Like really nice, just cutting, really clear, super detailed.
Yeah, that's that 1176 action in there.
Yeah, nice.
Totally.
Do you remember what else you had on that vocal chain?
It's hard for me to remember at this point because they're all subtly different, but that one 100% is 1176 because whenever I'm trying to use my deeper voice for rapping a little bit, I try to be like, you know, I try to get a little bit of that money bag yo like out of my voice, like
Yeah.
and
Hell
I
yeah.
just find the crunchiness of an 1176 when I'm trying to be, you know, strong with my voice is the way to go. So I know that's on there probably with like 10 dB. Obviously, I would have a de-esser, a
Yeah.
FabFilter de-esser, Auto-Tune Pro, Auto-Tune Advanced Pro.
You put that as the first plugin in your chain usually?
No, usually like to go maybe de-esser first, then a little EQ to filter out a little bit of the bottom, maybe just a tiny like high-end boost or something very subtle, then the auto-tune, then the compressor. But I mix it up. I actually do now. That whole question, EQ first or compression, you can play with it. Like I like to EQ compress.
Yeah, that I don't think there's a right answer to anything. Let me just be clear on that. But I've always put auto-tune as the very first plugin if I'm working with somebody who's got it in their session. That's always the very first plugin. So it's interesting that you put it further down the chain.
Oh yeah, me and my friend have been actually experimenting with that. I like to just take out the low end, like just the 100 hertz and down-ish
Then
out
tune it.
first, just feeling like maybe it'll do a better job, you know, a little bit less rumble.
That's really cool. I'm gonna try that now. Like I'm gonna move to auto-tune down the chain now just to try it. I'm super curious.
That's the thing. Like I really just, sometimes I'm smoking weed, you know what I mean? Like I like to, when I get into it for a few hours, 3, 4 hours, 5 hours as those sessions, I just like, sometimes I go back to my sessions and I'm actually like, did you fucking do that? I'm like, I never would do that. That's weird. Like, something weird.
Yeah,
Side
sometimes I
chaining
look
or-
at my sessions too and I'm like, is this my mix? Like, did someone break into my computer? What's going on here?
You're like, am I that smart? Because like sometimes I'll do some weird side chaining type shit with like a dynamic EQ or like something weird. And
Something that you wouldn't, that's not typical for you.
yeah.
Yeah.
Some, a little bit more crazy.
And then what about like saturators or exciter or anything like that? Was that something that you use much on the project or on that song specifically? Do you remember?
On that one, I give away a little secret. For me, is I didn't have to do too much to the main vocal or like too much saturation. I got the saturation probably out the compressor, the 1170, and like Cambridge EQ, you know, whatever else was on there. But I used Vocaline Ultra, if you know that one, and I just did 3 different takes. Like everything, the bass line was actually 3 takes. A full stereo, like individual
It
takes.
doesn't sound like that. It sounds like one take.
At really low level.
Whoa.
Just left and right.
So you're
and I know that's
EQing
the
it with
hard
different
way.
tones, actually, with different takes.
I did that too, actually. Exactly. Like each one of those double and triple tracks,
Yeah.
like that's on the stereo, you can play with them a little bit different. They were like pretty compressed.
Man, I love that.
And it took more work, but it did sound better. It did. Then you know what I mean? Whether it's usually I would use microshift, stuff like that. So that's something I want to continue to maybe do. It just takes more tracking.
Very cool. Because that took more work, but my personal favorite on that project, that vocal sound you got on that track. So
Yeah.
really cool to hear how you did that, man.
Something.
And then you're tracking your
Mine
vocals
is
with
dope.
a U87?
Yeah.
And what
my
mic
baby.
pre? Just the, you were saying it's the UA stuff, right?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
I have a nice iMac with a Apollo Twin X or whatever. It's a Thunderbolt one from a couple of years ago, so it's a nice piece. I have a U87 Neumann, best investment ever.
Yeah. Yeah.
Love the freaking thing. It's so good.
That's above the bullshit range we were talking about before.
Yeah.
That is a very nice microphone, right? And it's
that's
worth it. Absolutely worth it.
Pretty. I would say it's worth it. But I use the Neve preamp, UAD in unison. I just put the Neve preamp in there.
Yeah, that's more hits have been made with that combo than probably any other in music history, right? U87 and Neve, like, good lord, that
guess so,
vocal
eh?
sound, dude.
Like, it's a nice, easy. Yeah.
It's so nice.
The new plugins that I'm really excited for is Capital Chambers, as I was telling you about. That's an insane reverb plugin.
Yeah.
It's the most luscious I've ever heard.
Yeah.
So for that.
Yeah, I haven't tried that one yet,
compressors.
but I'm still trying. I'm trying more and more to get used to the plugins I have before I go and buy another one. Because, like, I've probably got 10 reverbs, and I use 2 of them.
Yeah.
And before I go and
Yeah.
buy more, I need to learn the ones that I've got. I'd rather get really, really good at them than have a huge plugin library that I have to sift through. So
Yeah.
that's something that I've been on lately. For me, it's Valhalla and the Slate Verb Suite Classic, which is in the Slate Everything bundle. Those are the 2 that I use the most. And then a
Nice.
third would be just the little plate from Sound Toys, like just one knob. Well,
one is
not
good.
one knob. I mean, it's got a mixed knob, and then it's got, but like your size, where you go from the seconds, right? It's just one knob. So that one's super quick and flexible. I use it on like percussion and shit mostly, but those are the 2 or 3, and I'm really familiar
Nice.
with them. I know them well. You know, can kind of get most of what I'm looking for with those, but
Yeah, funnily enough, it's the simplest ones. It really is sometimes, that are just easy to use, and they don't have too much going on, but always give you a great sound. That's
Yeah.
like what you're looking for, right? I used on that song Stay, the acoustic one, which probably has the most reverb. I actually just used UAD Pure Plate, it's called.
oh yeah,
It's their most basic like plate reverb
Mhm.
plugin. It's like a cheap one.
yeah, that sounded
Yeah.
really nice.
And that it just had a beautiful sound to it. for
With
that one.
with a bit of a pre-delay, or with 0 pre-delay on the reverb. Do you remember?
I like to always put a bit of pre-delay.
Yeah.
So, you know, I probably timed it out on my phone, did the milliseconds.
Yeah.
I did like a 15
that math
millisecond
equation.
yeah, that,
It's like 60,000, right? Divided by the reverb time, and then
yeah, I think it's 60,000 divided by the BPM of
the
the
BPM.
song.
Yes. Thank you.
Always doing that thing.
Nice. Yeah, pre-delay is super powerful for getting it right. But that vocal sounded like really, really wet, but really like I could still hear everything that you were saying. You know,
Totally.
so you found a really good balance, I think, with that one.
Yeah, nice and compressed.
Yeah.
And that's,
Yeah, more compression. Cool. So Forever, the EP is out now on Apple Music and Spotify. Everybody should go check that out. It's under Noah L as the artist name.
yeah.
What else should we talk about today? We touched on mixing quite a bit. Hopefully that wasn't too boring for the non-technical people.
Yeah.
The EP. I want to know like how you got into music. Like when did you make your first song, and what made you want to make music when you were growing up?
I've definitely loved music since a really young age, probably because my dad was a children's entertainer in Toronto at one time, doing like birthday parties and stuff. So it's like a different version of, he would do magic tricks.
Like a clown?
Pretty much, but like not with a clown outfit.
Well, not with a clown outfit.
Definitely
Oh, okay.
not. Like his name was Mr. David, and he would do like preschools or like a house, you know, a birthday party for a 5-year-old.
Very cool.
And he actually this was back in the 70s or 80s.
Mm-hmm.
So he would play guitar, he would do magic tricks, juggling, like all this different kind of just shit. But he would sing us to sleep. He would sing us to sleep as a kid a lot. So that was something that he was like, my mom would always say, and I remember it too.
Oh,
Like
those are
that he
good
was
memories. Yeah.
super
Wow.
adamant about just folk music.
So were they original songs that he had written, or just like traditional folk songs? Or
Some of them,
Yeah.
some of them may have been original,
Yeah.
but they were more goofy because I think when he would write original ones, it's like maybe for his kids shows at the time.
Yeah.
So the lyrics needed to be able to be interpreted by a 5-year-old.
I see. Yeah.
But he would sing like Bob Dylan a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Van Morrison is one of his favorites. Just like, and the Beatles, of course. He was
Yep.
like definitely he was a real hippie back in the day. So I think that's definitely where a big, you know, I've been hearing music when your parents like put you onto it and sing you to
man.
sleep. It's huge. I loved Kanye West. As a kid, the first music I started listening to back in like 1999 was like Eminem and Dr. Dre and
Standard.
Limp
Keep
Biz-
going. That's my alarm
worries.
to move my car.
Limp Bizkit and stuff like that, you know, whatever was cool back then. And then Kanye was a big moment for me, I would say. When he
College Dropout.
yeah,
With the polos and the pink sweaters, that Kanye?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And not for the style. Like back then I was just a younger kid. I wasn't even into fashion at all. Just for the music. Like wow, like College Dropout and then the next album. So he was my favorite artist. And then of course years later Drake comes along and becomes kind of, you know, Drake was definitely my favorite artist for a long time.
Sure.
He's done so much for Canadian music. And then I don't know. I got out of high school. I was not in university for anything I really wanted to do, just kind of winging it with life. And then you're like, you know, I should really start learning something like a skill. And I had always talked about wanting to learn how to make beats and like just do the whole thing. You know what I mean? I was just so into music and basketball. I'm really into basketball culture at the time.
Yeah.
Just into that whole thing. And that's why I love what's hot, the street music a lot too. I like to stay in with that type of culture. So yeah, I was like, screw it. I went to Langara Digital Music Production. I had bought like a 15-inch MacBook Pro and like an MPC Akai MPC Renaissance.
Oh, right on. Yeah.
It was like $1,500 or something, but I ended up selling that thing later on, realizing that that's not how I'm going to make music. And then just getting the small pads. But yeah, I don't know. That was kind of my journey.
So you had the MacBook Pro and the sampler, and what was your mindset? Like, I'm gonna be an artist, or I'm just fucking around. I want to try this. Like, where were you at that point?
That must have been like 2015 or like 2014, and it was, to be honest, I hadn't fully committed. I had a bit of savings, and I wanted to get a new computer, so I got that MacBook, got the thing, and then I got a $350 microphone, the Rode NT1.
Okay.
And literally, I knew nothing. I literally bought that with knowing nothing about it. I'm like, having this was going to make me do it.
Yeah.
I definitely wasted like 2 or 3 years there. Just like fucking around pretty much. Like, you know, you watch a couple YouTube videos just moving at a slow pace and like not even really understanding like compression. You know what I mean? Like not even diving in.
Oh, yeah.
Just drumming in beats with like...
Cool.
And literally trying to like keyboard in like random synth lines. You know what I mean? Just the most basic shit.
I mean, that's how everybody starts, right? Just not...
Exactly.
You're in a car, but you don't know what any of the... Nothing does.
And then you start recording these vocals in.
Yeah.
But you've heard of EQ. I don't even think I had heard of compression. I might have like submix.
Yeah.
Seeing those words submix in my thing used to piss me off. Like, or bus.
Yeah.
I was like, what is a submix? Like, what is this knob for?
So, pause for a quick sec. 2015 would have, I mean, GarageBand was well on its way back then. But were we talking Logic?
No, sorry,
or what
that might have been
using?
like 2013, 2014, actually, because I went to school for this in 2016 to audio engineering school. So that's where I really started getting the skills. Sorry, you said what software?
Yeah, like what were you using that we're talking?
Yeah, and this is how bad it was. Like, I'm old school. I don't learn too well from YouTube. I actually, you know, if I want to learn, I want to go to school and like have a teacher like speaking to me, taking notes, like doing project exams. So I was just using the Akai software. Like when you buy that thing, because it was like $1,200, it was like the most premium.
Oh, it comes with its own work
like
DAW.
all the shit and lights on it that light up. The Akai, it comes with its own DAW. It's probably...
I've never even heard of it. That's cool.
Yeah, you can go to their website, Akai. Okay. But it's more for drums. Like,
but you could still track your vocal into that, right? And mix it? Were you just programming the beats with that?
It was mostly the beats, like the vocals on top. I guess I started more like, I didn't even think about that, man. I'm so just not thinking about my past.
Yeah, so I'm curious like how you got the vocal onto the beat.
Back then, I think you could, there might have been like, I didn't even know what an insert was. I didn't even know I didn't have any plugins other than what was like stock in there. Yeah. So I don't even, they must have some inserts for plugins, but I don't even know.
Okay.
I went to school.
And then, so this is like 6 years ago. And then have you released before your EP that's out now? Have you released anything prior to that?
Yeah, I had a few things. I had my first EP after we finished our Langara 1-year course.
Okay.
And when I released that, I just wasn't happy with it at all. Like there was something there. I'm sure when every artist goes back to their first shit, there was something there, but the quality was shit.
Yeah, I know what that's like. I can't even listen to my demos back in the day. Like it's a horrifying process. But it was like the spark was there. It was just very unpolished and unrefined and awkward as fuck.
Exactly.
But that's where we started, right? So
yeah, it's hard to listen
that's okay.
to.
And now you're using
I released a couple singles and stuff. Now I use Logic.
Logic. Okay.
I'm a big Logic guy. I love Logic. Yeah, I love Logic.
Yeah, I use Logic too.
It's a good all-round one.
I use Logic too. I use Pro Tools more, but I use Logic about 40% of the time. It's really, really good. It's intuitive. It's it needs to update its color palette. If you're listening, Apple engineers, compared to the Pro Tools color palette, I find the Logic color palette unusable. It doesn't make any sense. It's just like 12 versions of purple and orange. There's nothing really useful in there.
You mean to like pick for your
colors? The colors, they don't even have red. There isn't even red.
It's like a bright orange or
it's
something.
It's like 12 shades of orange, 12 shades of purple, and then teal. And I'm like, well, anyways, I could go on a tangent about that.
Yeah.
But
I should just update it to Monterey.
Considering it's Apple and, how many smart motherfuckers work at Apple, they, get a better color palette. But Logic, other than that's great.
One thing I'm excited about in Logic, I just updated to Monterey, is the Atmos mixing ability.
Yeah, you were telling me about that. Yeah, that kind of scares me still a little bit, but eventually I think we're all going to have to, if it sticks around, we're all going to have to learn it.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's a whole new, but I'm sure our skills will translate a little bit, I'm sure.
I hope so. I'm just starting to get a good grasp on stereo, and now they're adding fucking...
I know, like
12
more channels or something stupid.
Well, I guess it's 5.1, but there's actually a lot more to it than that, right? I think there's more channels. I still haven't really even dipped my toes in it. So
one thing you might find cool is a video I saw on YouTube of the Ultimate Atmos Studio, but you might not even want it. It's like some rich guys who just like build this shit. I think they got like Genelecs like this in the front, but they actually have it's like a dome. It's like probably the most advanced Atmos mixing.
Yeah. Small fortune, I bet.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Not quite for me. I just got the Genelecs and I'm really, really, really happy with them. My listening environment's never been better. I got the sub, so I'm getting comfortable with this for now. And I still mix on headphones a lot, like easily more than on the Genelecs. I'm mixing on the Audio-Technica's HT2020, or sorry, HT-M50X.
Yes, same ones.
These are my third pair, but I know them so well. Like I just put them on and I know exactly what stuff's supposed to sound like. I know what all my favorite records sound like on those. I'm so comfortable with them. So the decision making on these is just effortless, right? Yeah. They're not the most expensive headphones by any stretch of the imagination, but I know them so well, and that's what's important.
They're the best headphones like I know personally, and I've heard I love the sound of them.
A lot of top engineers use them. Like Josh Goodwin, who's Justin Bieber's engineer, has a pair of Audio-Technicas, these same ones.
Yeah.
Alex Toomey, who's one of my favorite hip-hop mixers, has a couple pairs of these. Like everybody's got these, man. They're not, you can buy way
it's
better
almost the industry standard at like $250.
They're like the Yamaha NS10s of headphones, right?
Literally.
They just work. So yeah, I take them everywhere with me. I had them on vacation this summer when I was in Europe. Mixing on those, and yeah, I love them. So
totally.
One day when we have more than 2 ears as humans, maybe I'll get a new pair of headphones, but as long as I have 2 ears, I'll probably stick with
this one.
Yeah,
you can't beat them. I'm also working on a new song right now.
Yeah, tell me more. Or maybe you want to keep some of it a secret, but
no, well, if anybody checks out my music from this, I would love that, obviously.
Yeah,
and I hope that there's something there for everybody to enjoy and something a little bit different. So
when can we expect the new single?
New single, hopefully by the end of the month. I just don't want
Okay.
to push it too
Okay.
much.
Well, it's
Some
still
stuff going
August
on.
is still fresh, so yeah.
I think I can say that by the end of August for sure. It's
Wicked.
a song for my mom, so I think I'm putting a lot of effort into it.
Of
and it's
course,
been-
man.
So I hope
Yeah,
it's
well,
good.
we're all looking forward to hearing that. And the new EP is out right now. Forever EP, Noah L. Why don't we wrap it up there?
Sounds good. That was
Any
awesome.
any final words? Anything you want to say?
No, just thanks so much for asking me to be on this show.
My pleasure,
It
dude.
means a lot.
This was so much fun.
I love talking gear
Yeah.
and just plugins and
We could do
music
this
production
once a
with
week,
you.
honestly.
Yeah,
It was great.
I'm pretty down, and we should definitely do it more often.
Awesome.
Thanks so much for having me, Max.
Yeah,
That was
thank
dope.
you, man. This is Noah L. and Max Deshaw. Demo to Lemo podcast. Have a fantastic week, and we'll talk to you soon. Peace.
Peace.